non-rock-a-boaters must stop. I don't want to rock the boat. I want to sink it.
Are you going to bark all day, little doggy, or are you going to bite?
You're being delusional. I love you, Jeff.
Delusional, yeah. Delusional is okay in your worldview. I'm an animal. You don't chastise chickens for being delusional. You don't chastise pigs for being delusional. So you calling me delusional using your worldview is perfectly okay. It doesn't really hurt. She hung up on me.
What?
Desperate times call for faithful men and not for careful men. The careful men come later and write the biographies of the faithful men, lauding them for their courage.
Go into all the world and make disciples. Not go into the world and make buddies. Not to make brosives.
Right.
Don't go into the world and make homies.
Right.
Disciples.
I got a bit of a jiggle neck. That's a joke, Pastor.
When we have the real message of truth, we cannot let somebody say they're speaking truth when they're not.
Take an amazing journey to a place that will blow your mind and move your heart so you will never be the same again.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the episode of Apologia Radio. Tell me if you ever heard this before.
The song?
I think it's good.
The
song is good.
It's good, yeah.
It is good. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. This one's good. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. Sound familiar? That used to be kind of a standard in this country in terms of transcendent divine law and something that sort of expressed public morality. I mean, there are, of course, as we all know, capitals and courthouses across these United States as a part of this grand experiment we call United States of America that have the Ten Commandments listed, put over judges' heads, chiseled into the rock, that sort of thing. And though the Christian worldview was the grounding of this particular nation, and so many before us, so many Christians took seriously the call to disciple the nations and teach them to obey Jesus, though it was in the atmosphere early on and provided the transcendent grounding to a lot of the blessings we have in this nation that made it what it is and made it worthy of raising hands and swearing oaths to. You know, I think that the vast majority of people today who raise the hand to swear the oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, I think that they've never read it.
No.
And they don't know why it says what it says, right, or what it means. And so you can see that oftentimes when you see sort of like these First Amendment audit videos and you see people, being accosted by police officers in unjust ways, you wonder, this person who swore the oath, did they know what that oath, what it meant, what they were swearing to? That's what we're going to talk about today, because we have so much happening in the world today. I mean, it's all over the world today, but particularly in the West, so much is happening, so much of a downgrade, so much destruction, and with a recent $3.5 trillion spending bill suggestion, we got to talk.
NBD.
We got to talk. So much is happening. So this is the gospel heard around the world. This is Apologia Radio. You guys can get more at apologiastudios.com. That's APOLOGIA, apologiastudios.com. You can go there. You can get all the past episodes, hundreds of them, radio shows, podcasts. You can get Sheologians with Summer and Joy. You can get Cultish with Andrew and Jeremiah. You can get Provoked with Pastor Zach and Desi, and you can get Apologia Radio. So much is there. You guys can go access all of that. Go and just just gobble it all up and feed yourselves. There's a lot of really great stuff. Blessing to really all of us to be a part of this. And you can also go to apologiastudios.com and sign up for Bonson U, which is completely free. We need Dr. Bonson. We need his teaching. We need
Seriously.
the comprehensive biblical worldview that he taught and defended for so long, that was seminary lectures, classroom courses, Bible studies. We have now all of it in our hands at Apologia, and we are making it accessible to the world. It is a seminary level education, literally, completely for free. So it's free, and it shouldn't be, okay? I mean, this is like the highest level of seminary education you can get. Way better than most of the seminaries you can go to in the United States of America today and put yourself in debt to do. We've got it for free. That's a blessing from God. Thank you to David Bonson and the Bonson family for giving it to us. More and more is coming all the time. Go get your free account if you need it now more than ever. Let me tell you right now, you need it now more than ever. We've been trying to convince everybody for a very long time on these things at Apologia, and now you're seeing why. Now you're seeing why. And so go get it, and don't forget to sign up for All Access. You make everything we do possible. We are going to be dropping this week a couple videos from our trip out to Utah. Last week, we had the official first service for Apologia Utah. Praise God. There were like 170 people in attendance for the very first service, so praise the Lord for that. That's a little bit more than we had for ours. Maybe about 20, 30 times more. So praise the Lord for that. But we got some content out at the Salt Lake City Mormon Temple. We got content outside of an abortion facility in downtown Salt Lake. Really intense, by the way. We're not going to bleep out the stuff that was said because we want you to feel the full weight of it.
Get ready.
So just get ready for it. It was intense. And so All Access, you make all that possible. So all the people that come to Christ on a regular basis, and I learned about two Mormons that came to Christ this last week as a result of watching the content in Apologia Studios. You make all that possible. So thank you. Let's get right into it. First, I wanted to share a quick story that sort of does really segue into the main thrust of what we wanted to do today. So I have had so many bad experiences with TSA. You? No? Not so much?
Weird experiences.
Yeah?
But nothing like nobody's been
You ever get
mad
felt
or
up?
rude or yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I think a few times I've been through in the little machine, the little
naked machine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was broken or whatever, and they didn't, I don't know, trust the metal detector.
Right. Thanks to Bradley Pierce, it's not so much a naked machine anymore.
It's kind of naked.
It's kind it used to be they saw all your goods and stuff. Now it's very different as a result of friends we have that put some fights in and sort of change that. So praise the Lord for this.
I didn't know Bradley Pierce was a part of that.
I didn't either until just recently.
Yeah. So prays the Lord. So
it's almost like you should have some right to privacy or something.
One would think.
I mean, I don't want some stranger, looking at me and my wife naked. I don't know. It just seems kind of basic.
They don't so much usually when you're towing a child through. They don't always make you go through.
Yeah,
if
you have a big family, they let you go through the metal detector.
Right.
That is true. You get to avoid the naked machine. So I've had some bad experiences with TSA, and here's what I want to say. We've traveled around the world by God's grace, and it's a humbling experience to be able to travel around the world and preach the gospel and go all these different places. So we've seen a lot of places. We've been to Australia, we've been all over, we've been to Ireland, we've been around. And so we've actually gone through a lot of security in foreign countries and things like that, and it's really actually amazing. Some of the countries that you go to and you go through their security, you're kind of, as an American, going, sorry, does anybody want to fill me up? Anybody want to?
No takers.
No takers. No one wants to. One time I walked through security and the guy
Sir,
was
why
just
are you
like,
taking your shoes off?
Yeah. For real.
No,
keep your laptop in your bag.
That's literally happened. Like, what are you doing? Why are you taking your belt and shoes off right now, sir? And I'm like, oh, didn't you? You didn't want me to strip down? Like, what's? And you get to the States now, and after 9/11, we assume now when we go into the airport that like the Constitution doesn't apply. Biblical law doesn't apply. We're going to go into this now, and a complete stranger is allowed to touch my genitals or the genitals of my children.
In the name of safety.
In the name of safety, a complete stranger.
Not an open hand.
I'll start this by giving you sort of like the far end. So I've had
Did
a lot
something weird happen on this trip?
Yeah, but it wasn't as
Well,
extreme
when I
as
say this
some.
trip, I mean,
I just want to say I've never had as many.
Yeah. And I
think
try
some
to keep
people,
my mouth shut.
Some people kind of.
It's like you're a magnet.
I
You
don't know
and
what it
Marcus
is. I
Pittman.
don't go in there causing problems, but if you do something that is unlawful, I'll say something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the key thing. I don't keep quiet about it. Like if you're, okay, so as an example, and I'm sorry, everyone, this is a serious issue. It is a violation of the law, and what it speaks to is an abandonment of God's standards of justice.
Yeah.
That's the issue. This isn't just about America and Constitution and red, white, and blue. Woo! Like, going through. That's not what this is about. For me, I'm a minister of the gospel. This is about God's law reigning supreme. And if you give way on this, it will make its way into the courts and into the court of popular opinion about how you can sling accusations at people. You can call them guilty and try to find out if they're innocent. It's reverse. So, I've had instances where, once I was coming through the Spokane airport after doing some stuff for EAN in Idaho, and, Pastor Zach and I are just having a good time. We're like glad to go home now and see our families. We're smiling. We're not even serious. And, I put my stuff up on the conveyor belt, and I noticed in the corner of my eye, homeboy is standing right in the middle of the naked machine, and he's just got this very angry sort of mad dogging me look. And I just kind of glance, and I'm like, okay, so I'm getting everything on the conveyor belt, and then I look over at him, and he just points his finger at me, and he yells, he's like, you will not come through here until your stuff passes. And I was like, okay. All right, that's sure, that's fine. I was like, that's fine. Like, and he kept going, and so finally got to the point where I walked up. I said, "Sir, I won't. Just tell me what you need me to do, whatever, And so I passed through the naked machine, and there is on my back, the machine goes off. This big yellow square goes off in the middle of my back. And he says, now he proceeds to just get really aggressive. He's like, no, well, sir, because this showed this, we're gonna have to do a full body pat down. I was like, what? He goes, we're going to do a full body pat down as procedure. And he was like, stand over here. I said, well, you can be a little more professional, respectful. Right. I said, but what happened? He goes, well, you look on that screen right there. You see that yellow thing? We got to do a full body pat down. And I was like, okay, I can show you. And so I lifted my shirt and I pulled it all the way back. And I was like, there's your machine is wrong. There's nothing there. Right. And he was like, he proceeded to tell me that he's going to do a pat down and he's going to touch my genital area. And so I said, okay, hang on. You got to explain to me something. So your machine says there's something on my upper back. So you're going to touch my genitals now. You're a stranger and a man, and you're going to touch my genitals now because of something on my back? I said, touch my back. I'll show you my back. I said, why are you going to touch my genitals because of something on my back? And he was like, that's procedure. And he was like, stop giving me a hard time or this is going to get worse for you, sort of a thing. And I was like, look, all right, go ahead and do your thing. And I said, but
this is going to get worse for you. Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, he ended up calling a supervisor over. So what I proceeded to do is there's people everywhere. And in a situation like this, I want you to consider what's happening in our culture now. Here's a man who is allowed to touch my most private area. He's allowed to do it in public because of something that's not even related to my private area, right? And and everyone is just allowing this to take place. So if it's going to be uncomfortable for me, I'm going to make it uncomfortable for him. So I proceeded every time he put his hands, in my private area, I just started yelling out into the airport. I was like, and now he's touching my genitals. And his face was blood red, and he's getting more and more angry. And so I was just like, look, I said, what you're doing right now is wrong. I was like, I don't know you. You don't know me. And because of something on my back.
He shouldn't want to do it.
Exactly.
Like, why is there...
So supervisor comes over. I explained to supervisor, like, look, I said, here's the issue. I said, you guys work for the government. You swore an oath to the Constitution. I said, you are doing something that is unreasonable right now. It's not right. And you're touching a stranger's genitals because of something that went off my back. I said, does that make sense to you? Is there even any connection there between those things? And eventually, I got through and everything was fine. I've had a few instances like that, and I don't think the stranger should be able to touch your genitals for no reason.
Agreed.
I think
that's reasonable.
It seems like a baseline thing we want to work for in our culture. Hashtag don't touch the genitals. I don't know. Like, it seems like sort of a rule we should have. So this week we're coming home from Utah. Now, mind you, we're populating the earth here. Okay, it's like Luke's family, Zach's family, my family. We're legitimately populating the earth. It's hard to go out and eat together.
Right.
Because it's like,
Yeah, literally.
you guys want to go eat together?
In fact, you only could find an Airbnb because you were in Salt Lake City.
Exactly, because you got
where
a lot
the
of
huge
right.
families are.
a lot
You
of
still had to get 2.
a lot of strange family situations going on. Why do they have 3 houses in one
Why are there
house?
tunnels?
I can't figure out why there's 3 kitchens and there's 3 levels. I can't figure it out. I don't know why. It's weird. So it's hard enough as it is for all of us. But we have children everywhere. I mean, I got my kids. I got a baby or a 2-year-old. He's got 2 small kids and a baby, and his
A
wife.
stroller and a car seat.
And Zach is apparently part of the Quiverful movement, and so he's just got kids lined up all the way down.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
So anyway, so we're coming through now, and I'm told, guys, I'm telling you, I'm not being a troublemaker. I just want to get on my airplane with my family and go home. I'm innocent. I'm not carrying any weapons. I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything bad. I'm an innocent person. And so we walk up, and then now we're like, oh wait, there's going to be a dog search now. So they have like 3 TSA guys, 2 police officers, and they got this dog, and they're making everyone stop and then walk past and let the dog search you. Mm-hmm. So let's stop and think about God's law now.
Just to be clear, the dog was sniffing you, not searching you.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. That's a search.
Man, the training they have for dogs these days, it's really, really...
So,
the dog is sniffing my genitals.
You're almost okay with it. They're so cute.
Yeah, well, it's different for a dog, I suppose. You can't help it. So, you, sir, can't help it. This thing can. So, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what's wrong here? Is that what you're doing is you're treating the general public as though they are guilty, and I need to prove you're not.
Right.
Right.
And the rule in God's law is 2 to 3 witnesses. You're not allowed to even bring a charge unless there's 2 to 3 witnesses, and then there has to be cross-examination. The whole way through, the person's supposed to be seen as innocent until it's like, nope, they're guilty. Why? Because of evidence and witness. So that provided the foundation for justice in the West. That's good. That's really good. And what we've done,
also what we tend to hate, like all these people that are up in arms about the justice system and police and stuff. Usually those issues arise because an officer is treating someone guilty when he doesn't actually know that.
I saw a video last night of a guy. This shows, like, watch. You give one direction. You're like, it's no big deal. Just do it. I mean, you're at the airport, get on the plane, whatever. You give there, it's going to spread. It's like cancer. And so I saw a video last night of just this young man. He was not speeding. He was not doing anything on the road that was illegal. He was literally pulling into his neighborhood to come home. Cop pulls him over and says, "Sir, random mandatory DUI test." And so he says to the guy, "What?" And
random and mandatory.
And so he goes, yeah, exactly, mandatory. And so this kid goes, "Sir, was I weaving?" And no. What was I speeding? No. "Sir, what did I do for you to pull me over?" And he was like, "Nothing." He's like, "I'm just doing a mandatory DUI thing." So he's like, "So you gotta do this test." And the guy goes, "I'm not doing it." He's like, I'm not doing it. I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And so this comp's like, well, if you refuse the mandatory DUI test, if you refuse it, even though he had no cause to give it,
right.
if you refuse it, he said, then you're going to jail. And then the kid,
wow,
good on him, he said, take me to jail. He said, because I'm going to win and I'm going to sue you, because what you're going to find out when you pull my blood is I'm not drinking.
Right.
And so you have no reason to pull me over. So what is that in that case? You're guilty in my eyes. I presume you're guilt. And I'm going to see if I can get evidence that you're innocent. Mm-hmm. Now, at the airport...
Well, you're so guilty that I will wait until I know you're innocent for you to not be guilty.
Exactly.
So that's like you're actually going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
It's unknown what you are, but I'm actually going to assume you're guilty.
I'm pretty dang sure that you're guilty. We'll see if we get you out of this.
Feeling in my gut.
Let's see if we can get you out of this one.
Which also, I'm sorry, but that makes any sort of drunk driving statistics
right.
They're just pulling people off the street, potentially people who have not had that much to drink. That
well, it's interesting.
It's all based off of the officers.
A police crew pulls over a random line of vehicles on the road. They say, we're going to block the street up, pull you over, and they stop your car. So you stopped your freedom to travel, and they say, have you been drinking? What a weird question. How you doing? Nice to meet you. Have you been drinking? Right. Or they say things like, where have you been tonight? Where are you going? That's an odd thing for you to ask me.
Like an honest person who has had one drink would say yes, but not a lot.
Right.
But
right.
not-
Have I damaged property?
Right.
Have I hurt anybody? So I haven't even committed a crime. Now I get pulled over and the police officer starts asking questions to see if they can prove that I'm innocent. Because the assumption is you're guilty. Let me see if you're not. Right. And so at the airport, going through, police dog is searching now every person. That is a search. The dog is trained to find stuff, and he's searching. So what is the Fourth Amendment? Illegal search and seizure. Right? What is that? Now watch this. By the way, so everyone goes in the right place here. We aren't arguing as red-blooded Republican American people, right? That's not how I'm arguing. I'm arguing as a minister of the gospel who has an eye on Lex Rex. The law is king. Divine law transcends everything, right? And so here we have a situation where you're coming through, everyone's getting searched by this dog, no witnesses have been brought forward, no warrant has been issued. The biblical worldview gave rise to the Fourth Amendment. What's that mean? In order to get somebody to be searched, to believe the accusation that they're guilty, you've got to go before a judge and present witnesses and evidence that this person is guilty so we can now search them. Where's that come from? That comes from Jesus. You're welcome, secularists. You like the Fourth Amendment? You like innocent before proven guilty? That comes from Moses. That comes from the law of God. So this dog now is searching everybody at the airport who's coming through security screening. And all I said very gently to the TSA people who were doing this and to the police officers, I said, gentlemen, you should read the Fourth Amendment. You swore an oath to it. You need to read it. And they looked at me like real confused. And as I'm like walking my way up to get searched by the dog, I'm just looking at each one and I'm saying, I encourage you just to read the Fourth Amendment. I said, this is guilty before proven innocent. This is an illegal search right now because you don't have a warrant to search me. And so they were like looking at me all confused, like, huh? And I said, just go read the Fourth Amendment. Just consider it. So then I get searched by the dog. We walk past, and there's another TSA guy at the end. He looked at me real confused. I said, I just want to encourage you to read the Fourth Amendment. You gave an oath. You work for the government. You read the Fourth Amendment. And so as I walk away, he says real loud, he says, well, if you don't like us breaking the law, don't fly.
Right. And that's the argument we've all been hearing, which is like, okay, fine, don't get stabbed with a medicine, but you'll just lose social privileges.
Right. Your job, your ability to feed
and
yourselves.
It's like, what do you mean? What do you mean you'll just like what? That's not an argument,
right?
Like just because you say that I'll lose them, that's never been like that. Like it's never been that way. But yeah, it's like, oh well, if you just don't.
If you just submit,
Just submit.
If you just submit, you'd be flying fine.
Right.
I mean, just let us do all these things.
Don't fly.
Sir, we like dogs and patting genitals here. If you don't like that, then don't fly.
Well, the dog has read the Constitution, but he just hates the Constitution.
The dog's sitting in the back. He's just going, come on, smell. He's like,
No, I will not.
I mean, the fact that he said, well, if you don't like us breaking the law.
I know.
That's what he said.
I know. It's one thing if he's like, if you don't like us, don't fly. But to say, well, if you don't like us breaking the law, which is an admission that he's doing something illegal.
Yeah, he said it, all, sort of pompous. And I'm thinking to myself, did he really just say that? And my family's with me. And they're like, did you hear what he said? I was like, that's insane. Can you imagine?
Well, I mean, isn't that just kind of the foolishness? Like, I need you to recognize my right to break the law based off of
right. And again, see, this is what people have to understand. This issue is a principled issue. It's a fundamental issue of how you will treat other human beings. Now, if you do it in one case over here, it means that Constitution, that Lex Rex, that law, isn't really ruling the land. No one really believes it. This is just theater. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So this, like, nowadays, I believe this. I think most politicians today and most of the people who go to swear an oath to uphold Lex Rex, the law of the land, this is the law. I believe it's theater, right? Because it doesn't matter anymore to anybody. Why? Because we live in a humanist society, a secular society that doesn't recognize that there's a transcendent law, a divine law above the law of the king and the government and everybody else. And so why would anybody hold to this crazy thing from hundreds of years ago. Why does it really matter? Why can't it just be malleable? Why can't we just shape it as time goes along? They don't believe in a transcendent law, and so it becomes malleable. I can just do with it as I please. I don't know what it means anyways. I don't believe it. I don't believe that it's a standard. And so you have people at the airport now treating everybody as guilty until proven innocent. And what takes place now when accusations come forth at a public level where, let's say, for example, a man is accused of rape publicly. Just accusation goes out, you raped me. And then all of a sudden you find out later that the whole country came in on it and said, yeah, this guy's a rapist. And you find out the woman confesses later, I lied about the whole thing.
Yeah.
But everybody said, no, the accusation was made, so therefore it's true. Why? Because we're going to assume the guilt of everybody until we can prove your innocence. Right. That goes into the court system. Look, if you don't like any human being being abused in the court system, I'm with you 100%. We need God's law to rule the courts. We do. We need people like John Jay who will literally reference the law of God as the transcendent law beneath this case law in our country. We need that. I don't want minorities persecuted and abused in the court system. But here's the deal. The reason I think that you see all this abuse in the court system is because this law doesn't matter any longer. It's sort of, it's whimsical. Like, how do you feel today? And what should this punishment be? So, for example, and then we're going to bring our good friend Zach Lautenschlager in for a good discussion on the spending bill so you guys can hear some details about that. A couple years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, there was an abortion doctor who pulled a gun and waved it at our friend Elvis, who does ministry outside the abortion clinic at a KC Women's Center in Phoenix. So we had the whole thing on videotape. The police officers of Phoenix would not help us. We had to eventually come to you all and share to everybody what was actually happening. And when we did that, within 4 hours, the Phoenix Police Department arrested Dr. Eunice. And it was only because we appealed to the public. Look, we have an abortion doctor pulling a gun on people standing on a public sidewalk outside of his abortion facility. Now, what do you think would have happened? Because a week went by with the report and the video to the Phoenix Police Department. A week went by with zero anything. No movement forward on the case. Didn't even attempt to make any move forward on the case. And when we brought Phoenix PD into it, they, even seeing the video, they refused to move on it until you guys contacted Phoenix Police and challenged them 4 hours later. Now, let me ask a question. If you had a video of Jeff Durbin, Luke Pearson, Joy, pulling a gun on an abortion doctor outside an abortion facility, what do you think would happen to me, us?
You'd still be in jail.
How long would that take? How long would it take if people who are outside of abortion facilities preaching the gospel, trying to save children, pulled a gun on anybody out there? How long do you think it would take to have us arrested, thrown into jail, and tried? And how severe do you think the punishment would be? I think it'd be fairly severe. I really do. Well, Dr. Ronald Eunice finally received his sentencing yesterday.
A year later.
And tell me about it. What was it? You probably know more details.
The full penalty, which again for us would have been far greater, I think. But I believe it was 2 years probation, Class C felony, anger management classes. So yeah, But the thing is, he's probably going to lose his medical license with the felony.
They don't.
That's good.
Like that.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
that's definitely good for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah. So let's bring Zach in. I don't know where I was going with that, but let's go ahead and bring Zach in. Yeah. So Zach Lautenschlager works a lot with a lot of the people at Apologia who are doing important work. He's helped a lot with End Abortion Now. We have this year with End Abortion Now, we've gotten into numerous states, bills of abolition and equal protection into numerous states. We have Texas, Arizona. We helped with the guys who were doing it in Oklahoma, South Carolina, Pennsylvania. We just returned from a rally out there with a bill of equal protection. Zach works a lot with Action for Life. It's a political organization working on the political side of abolishing abortion. And Zach is a genius. He is one of my favorite people to listen to and just let him talk about history. And so, Zach Lautenschlager, welcome to Apologia Radio.
Thank you, brothers. It's a pleasure to be here. As we talk about the current injustices, before we get into the bill, I had to tell you one thing. Depriving people of liberty and saying, well, if you don't like it, you don't have to do X. You don't have to fly. If you don't like it, you don't have to go to the grocery store. Eventually, where that goes, and it has happened in America before, when World War II started, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt decided that all the Japanese people living on the West Coast were a threat. And we're not talking about just immigrants. We're talking about Japanese Americans who had been here for generations. Some of them their parents had been born here. Their grandparents were born here. They were rounded up summarily and locked up in prison camps. They were moved across the country. There were camps in Utah. There were camps in Colorado where they were interned, and they spent most of the war there. While they were there, their sons were allowed to join the military and go fight overseas, while their parents were locked up in a prison camp guarded with machine guns.
Unbelievable.
In America. And one journalist said, and he was supporting the internment camps, after all, they only are being asked to yield their freedom. With a straight face. It's the same thing. Well, if you don't like it, you can leave.
Yeah. It's well, look, okay, when we talk about the issues today, you hear this being thrown around a lot, and it's a good thing that you do hear it being thrown around a lot, because it is true. What we're suffering under right now is tyranny. It's not the worst kind of tyranny yet. It's trying to get there. But tyranny is lawlessness. That's the issue. Lawlessness. And Christians, believers in Jesus Christ, aren't supposed to love lawlessness, accept lawlessness, submit to lawlessness. If it's sin, we have to resist it. And God has pretty clearly defined these issues of public justice in his law. The problem is today, I think most evangelicals in the West don't have any idea what the law of God says.
Right.
If you ask them to quote the 10 Commandments from 1st to 10th, they couldn't do it. Just with the 10, much less the case law systems about property rights, about injuring other people, and all the rest. And so God has defined this, and that's the issue here. You're moving today in the West away from the blessings of God's standards of justice and righteousness in public society. You're moving further away from that into this infinitely malleable system, which is to say it's not a system at all. It's just, it's changing constantly. And, and I'll sort of lead into this discussion with this. We've been talking a lot about this lately, and you need to know this. Oh, I actually have it right here. This is funny. Okay. I just happen to have pulled it out. This book, get it. Get this book. Do it quickly. Lex Rex, The Law and the King, or The Law is King. Samuel Rutherford. I think Canon sells this, right? Yeah, Canon Press. Get it from Canon Press, or I'm sure they have it on Amazon or whatever. Samuel Rutherford, Westminster, power puncher, hitter, just solid dude. This book is amazing, and it will take you time to digest and reason. Rutherford is known for his amazing devotional material, and when you see him and when you read him in this book, you will realize he wasn't just into that. The man was solid. Samuel Rutherford, Lex Rex. That was the foundation in the historic Christian tradition that brought so much goodness to the world. Face it, it did.
Right.
And what I was saying is it's not the king that is the law. He's not a law unto himself. He doesn't just get to play God. He is not deity. It's not whatever the king wants or the ultimate of the government. That's not it. Lex Rex is the law as king. Transcendent, divine law is the thing that matters most. It's the law as king. Not the king is law. The law is king. And so get that. That's what we're moving away from today, because we live in a culture and society where people don't believe in the transcendent. They don't believe in an ultimate. They don't believe Jesus is king. And so here you go. And I want to say this because I think it's so important to say, and I hope everyone hears me with humility on this truly. But it's our fault. Okay? Judgment starts at the household of God, right? So it's our fault. We're in a situation today in a nation that had so much rich Christian heritage and inheritance, right? That's what got us all this. It wasn't a utopia. No one's arguing for a utopia, but it was good. It was the Great Commission on its way up, right? I mean, that's how the world goes. It goes like, these fits and starts of like great blessing and light and freedom and liberty and gospel and salvation, and it's and that's what we have. We came from there, and it's our fault. It's the fault of pastors in the pulpits. It's the fault of cowards in the pulpits. It's the fault of men leading churches who want to live comfortably and they want to live safely. It's people who will not do what, say, the apostles and leaders of the early church did in the book of Acts, and that's become enemy number one, right? And take a beating for Jesus and not be liked by people. We live in this generation of Instagram and TikTok, and it's quick, fast snippets, and do you like me, and am I beautiful, and, are we friends, and, like, I want everyone to just love me and love my message. It's like Jesus says, woe to you when all people speak well of you. Woe to you when all people speak well of you. We've got now behind us a generation of cowardly pastors and Christian leaders, not all of them, not everybody, but cowardly pastors and Christian leaders who didn't do squat. Mm-hmm. And they separated from the world, and they said, I guess I don't really need to say that Jesus has something to say about public morality. I mean, Jesus doesn't have anything to say about morality, does he? No, not public morality. No, Jesus only has stuff to say to us here in this little huddle in the church, but he could care less about injustice in the world all around the church. Is that really the God of the Bible? I mean, seriously. Do you read the Bible, say, from cover to cover, and see nothing in there about God's concern about justice in the public realm? In the public square? Do you see nothing? Or do you see actually it's weighted to a direction of, some might say, that's obscene. God seems completely concerned, always concerned about justice and righteousness, which is, by the way, also why Jesus died publicly on a tree as a criminal, because of all of our sin and injustice and unrighteousness. God is supremely concerned with justice and righteousness, so much so that God, in the person of Christ, had to come and die for the sins of his people because we are so unrighteous and unjust. And we live in a day now where the generation of believers before us, I love you and Jesus loves you, but you handed us this. You did this. Of course, people are responsible for their own sin, and they're going to be judged for it. But the Christian church was called by Jesus to be light and salt to the world. So what happened? Because you say, well, in some countries you walk into a place where it's just a bunch of tribes never heard of Jesus before. Is that really the Christians' fault that they're so pagan? Well, no, that's not what we're talking about here, is it? We're talking about a nation that was grounded in Christian truth and the gospel and the biblical worldview. We had those blessings in that inheritance. And guess what? We PP'd it all away. There's the sanitized minister version of that. We did. I mean, this last generation, we've just said, no, Jesus isn't concerned with any of that stuff, and so we'll just sit here in our holy huddles and just wait for the rapture. Mm-hmm. And guess what? Now your kids are paying for it. Your grandkids are paying for it. You're paying for it. Your friends who own private businesses, they're paying for it. They're losing. They're being stolen from. Do you think Jesus cares if people are stolen from? Something to think about. Do you think Jesus cares if people are stolen from? I say he does, which is why the Christian church has something to say to the federal government when it goes off into complete covetousness and theft, because Jesus cares about that kind of sin. And since he's the ruler of the kings of the earth, book of Revelation, and since he's the King of Kings today and Lord of Lords today, he has something to say about it, and he uses his people to speak against it. And you didn't. When I say you, I'm saying collectively, generally, the last generation or two of evangelicals just sort of stepped away from the public life and didn't speak into this stuff, didn't speak in the area of media, didn't speak in the area of legislation. We just stepped away from it, and guess what? Now you've got Biden and Pelosi and these demons who are just now trying to get their ultimate wish list. And that's where we bring Zach in.
That's the truth.
When you have Christmas lists, like, for example, if one of you was like, hey, Jeff, I want to buy you a great Christmas present. Mm-hmm. I love you so much.
Bananas. Yerba mate.
Put it all in this wish list. Give me your best. As much as you guys would say, give me your best, I want to get you something special. What is the natural thing to do for a person when they say, hey, just pick whatever you want? We're just like, I don't want to punish this person.
Yeah. Right.
So you're just like, I'll pick something, kind of what I want, but not like...
Not my top
middle
top shelf.
I'm not going to abuse Luke and Joy. They want to bless me. I'm not going to abuse them. I'm not going to give you my ultimate wish list. This $3.5 trillion spending bill is like their uber wish list. Yeah. It's like the worst of socialism. It's the worst. It's their Christmas wish of their dreams where they were unfettered. They were just like, I will get everything that I want, and I will completely annihilate the foundations of this nation.
Yep.
That's what it is. It's not just a budget bill, spending bill. It's an annihilation of our way of life. It's a destruction of our neighbors. And Zach, I need you to help me with it. What is going on with this spending bill?
Sure. So there are really two parts, right? There's the so-called infrastructure bill, which goes to things that we would more consider to be normal spending. However, it's still $1.2 trillion, which is an outrageous amount of money. And we're talking about spending on many things that people have accepted would be normal spending for the federal government. But you're spending, $332 billion on the banking committee, $726 billion on health, labor, education, and pensions committee. $20 billion on Indian affairs, $25 billion for the small business committee. So even in the so-called the more reasonable infrastructure bill, you're talking about outrageous amounts of spending. But that's not the bad part.
No,
that's not the bad part. That's only 1.2 trillion. And just wrap your mind around how much 1.2 trillion is. You can spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, right? And that you're not even getting there. So now the problem is that Biden also wants a 3.5 trillion spending bill. And this is also stuff which includes $3 billion and 3.5 trillion in spending. It includes $3 billion in tree equity. Even trying to figure out what is tree equity?
What is
tree equity? To them? Are we?
Right.
What are we doing with tree equity?
Hugging.
Yeah, hugging, studying. We don't really know. I mean, maybe we're planting some trees. That's good. Is this what the federal government should be doing? How about $79 billion for the IRS, just for the IRS, so they can step up their tax enforcement? Think about the nightmare of them being able to having even more staff to paw through your tax returns.
I'm going to tax you more so I can pay to tax you more.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Immense spending for components of the Green New Deal, which is just absolute killing burdens on businesses, on jobs, on agriculture, on the very backbone of what makes America great. Social safety net programs. There's $3 billion earmarked by the House Agriculture Committee, which would be doled out to state, local, or tribal governments for that's the tree planting, increase the tree canopy, so to speak. So it's the amount of stuff that's here. We can look at others. There's $7 billion for the United States Postal Service to purchase electric delivery vehicles, because it's not that the gas ones don't work. It's that we need the electric ones that don't work as well in order to work. Another $5 billion for more electric cars for the federal government. Union members are getting special treatment.
Oh, sure.
So $1 trillion in programs for older Americans, $15 million for technical assistance centers. I mean, you can go on and on. It's a wish list.
Yeah, it is
leftist programs.
The dream wish list of leftist socialist programs, but it would undermine, everything that is ultimately good and righteous. And what's interesting here is that the way that this has been, the narrative in the media, Zach, is that the main thing that the Biden administration wants to do is it wants to build back better. It wants to build back better. And what they mean by that is they want everyone to fully submit to the dark parts of their own hearts, and that's covet their neighbor's goods. And so I couldn't believe recently when we were actually coming out to meet you, Luke and I think I told you I was watching it as it was live. Well, I couldn't believe the first 10 minutes of this speech from the president, from President Biden, was all about, isn't it terrible that all these people who are successful have all this stuff? We need to get their stuff from them because you deserve their stuff. And I thought to myself, I was in the airport, like I was just going, what just happened? What just happened? And we live in a country where if you would have said that 300 years ago in a Christian community, hey guys, this guy's really successful. You guys want to take his stuff? Everyone would say, you need to go to church, friend. What do you mean you want to take his stuff? You want his stuff for you? And now we have the leader of this nation saying, you guys should all want their stuff. Isn't it not fair that they have stuff? Don't you want some of their stuff? And it's like, this is covetousness on stilts, and it's theft. Because what happens is covetousness naturally lends towards theft, because when you want your neighbor's stuff, not just that they inspire you with their success, that's good to have inspiration for success, that's how things get better, but you want their stuff, what ends up happening is that theft starts to take place, because you want their stuff so badly, you'll go to any means to take their stuff, right?
Yep.
So Zach, let's talk about that. I want to talk about the moral foundations. Why is this so broken?
Well, what Biden is saying, and what's so appalling, he's telling the American public, this isn't going to cost the taxpayer anything. This will not cost you anything. It's all going to come from the rich people.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, and even that's appalling even in itself, because what we're saying is that, well, because you're rich, the government should charge you more to pay for all these outrageous things. That is simply theft, legalized, and having the police do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do not agree with those who say that taxation is always theft. Okay, there is an appropriate level of taxation for appropriate things.
Yeah, it's mostly theft.
The number of things that I think are appropriate compared to the number of things compared to none, and then compared to how many we have, well, we're fairly close to agreeing that almost all the time in America, taxation is theft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it is, because you are intentionally taking more money from people who make more in order to redistribute it.
Mm-hmm.
That is wrong. That is immoral.
Yeah, it's immoral. That's the issue, right? So that's the key thing. And speaking to these things, brothers and sisters, someone say, why don't you just talk about the gospel? I am.
Right.
I am.
Yes.
Because it's the gospel of the kingdom. And watch this. How do you preach the gospel in the public square without talking about sin? Right? I mean, what did Jesus die for? Because of sin. And so how do you speak about the gospel in this modern context with all this sin all out there? And it's just being just tossed upon all of your neighbors that you're supposed to love, by the way. How do you talk about the gospel without talking about these sins?
Right.
Because if someone says, well, why did Jesus die? Well, he died because of the covetousness that Biden is promoting.
Correct.
Right, that's why.
That's right.
He died. Yep. He died because there would be sin is so embedded in the human heart that human beings would actually think it appropriate to oppress their neighbor, to take their things at the end of a barrel of a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And threaten,
right. And the big part of the problem here is that we are literally cutting our noses off. When we say, well, we're just going to tax the rich and that's not going to cause any problems. No, what we're really doing, a large part of what we're doing here, is taxing the means of production. You're taxing businesses. You're taxing industry. You are taxing the source of your job. And so it absolutely comes right back on your own head. This destroys jobs. This is what kills jobs off. This is
what
why
they
we
want.
don't have jobs anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And then what's our response? Oh, well, let's pass an even bigger spending bill in order to send people more money in the mail so that they don't have to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so that even when there are jobs, we can't get enough people to fill them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
It's so broken that I sympathize with my friends who say it's all one grand conspiracy to destroy the country. Well, are there people who are trying to destroy the country? Sure, absolutely. There are always evil people. But there's also the darkness of our own hearts and our own sin. And the fact that God gives us over to strong delusions when we submit to that kind of darkness. Communism and Marxism is radical rebellion against the Lord Jesus Christ and his law. And what happens when we submit to Marxism, when we start following it and saying, well, you end up with spending bills like this, which at the same time destroy jobs and then destroy the ability to get or want a job.
And let's just be honest. You guys speak to this too, or just everything that Zach is saying. If you were the parent of a young adult, say 21 years old, who was living their life with the economic principles of our modern day government, you would be challenging them, stop and rethink your life and what you're doing. You can't live your life economically like this. You can't just keep spending, and taking. You are not being responsible, and you're going to destroy yourself. We are so far in debt right now. With fake money. And by the way, God does have stuff in his law about real money, and That's
Sure does.
That's an aspect of God's law in terms of having real money. You talk about inflation going on right now. You know what? Honestly, brothers and sisters, if we just followed God's law and his economic principles, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. We're in it right now because we print fiat currency. We've moved away from real money, and we spend ourselves into debt. And you know what? Here's the thing. When you see like a guy who is just sort of on a wild spending spree, maybe he's come into a little bit of money, right? He's got some money, he's buying cars and mansions, and he's then throwing parties, wild parties with, you know, the most expensive champagne. He's just constantly spending, and he's just buying debt. Eventually, you know, the way this world works, because he's got no money coming in, he's spending it all and putting himself in debt. Eventually, that house is coming crashing down. Yep. It's an inevitable conclusion, right? It's not an if, it's always a when. If you live a life of sinful economic choices, prepare to reap the benefits of that. It will come. And if we as a nation are sinning against God with how we spend our money, eventually it comes crashing down. Yep. And everyone's like, you know what's so, this is what I think is so sinful about it. Right? And this is the point, because we have kids now. Mm-hmm. Lots of them. And here's what I think is so sinful about it, is that the way everyone thinks in our world today, without a love for God, without a love for his law, and love for the generation after you, is that everyone just simply says today, yeah, this might not be that great of an idea, and yeah, heck of it, it's a lot of debt, which means slavery. Let's just pass it on to the kids. Yeah.
I like free monies.
Let's just put it down here. Because here's the thing. It would be really bad for us right now if all this collapsed on our heads. Yep. It's inevitable. It's going to. So why don't we do this? Let's raise the debt ceiling. Let's see if we can just push this debt off to the kids a little bit more. Yep. Because we'll just have them deal with it. Like, maybe they'll find a solution to it. You know, here's the point. If you put a country like $50 trillion into debt, you're not getting out of it. You're not getting out of it with these principles. No way. And here's the deal. Why am I so passionate about this? Because I have kids, and I have grandkids now, and they're saddled with this. And I say love for them demands that we speak against this stuff. And love for my common neighbor also demands that we speak against this stuff, because you cannot promote covetousness and theft and hatred and sexual immorality in a nation. You can't promote all of that, and you can't do it without consequence. It's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt bad.
Well, let's be honest. The people that are pushing this aren't having kids. So it's our kids.
Right.
And our grandkids and our great-grandkids that they're pushing it on.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a tremendous opportunity, though, too, because as this falls apart, right, as things begin to be more and more unsustainable, and just for comparison, just so you can kind of get an idea, I haven't looked the last couple of days, and it changes daily, but it's last time I looked, it was 25% of the entire national debt for the entire history of our country was incurred in the last year. What? 1/4 of 200 years. Yes.
In one year.
200 years.
In one year. Wow.
Yes. If that needs to stretch your thinking a little bit. It is an unbelievable amount, and it continues to change. But you can't spend trillions. We don't understand what trillions mean. The word really doesn't mean anything. It's hard. Right. It's hard to understand. What does that word even mean? Mm-hmm. It means massive amounts of money that you do not have. So, but what's the opportunity, right? Eventually, the reality is people who are willing to work and make stuff are going to take over. The opportunity to actually produce things of value and to be able to do things to provide services, those don't go away. And the knowledge that, hey, there's all this technology, there are all these aids, there's all this benefit that we used to have that are just out of reach, or we're getting to be out of reach now. The more creative we are, the more opportunity that we're willing to work hard and take advantage of opportunities. Now, the children, if we train our children not to enjoy the fruits, but to make them, to build them, to provide those services, I believe that there's going to be increased opportunity. Just the demographic side of it. There's some great studies out there on right now. If you're 18 years old and you don't have a job, it's because you don't want one. There are so many jobs available right now, and that only continues to grow. Even if there aren't jobs, people still need the stuff. They still need the services if we're creative enough and have the mindset to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Now you sound post-millennial.
Yeah.
I've always been post-millennial. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm just saying you sound like it. That's all I'm saying.
No, thank you, brother.
Yeah. There was one quote I wanted to give you if you have a minute.
Yeah.
So the 18th Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, and he went to school with Daniel Webster. He was a U.S. Senator from Massachusetts for a couple of years. His name is Robert Charles Winthrop. He is the descendant of John Winthrop, one of the Puritans who came to America and settled Jamestown. Robert Charles Winthrop, when he was Speaker of the House in the 1840s, said this: "Men, in a word, must necessarily be controlled either by a power within them or by a power without them, either by the word of God or by the strong arm of man, either by the Bible or by the bayonet." And so if we are willing to be self-governed by the law of God, which means governed by God's law enforced on ourselves, there is freedom. And what does the Bible tells us over and over and over again, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom.
Yep.
When my people perish for lack of vision, which means lack of understanding what God's law is. So this is nothing new. This is not anything that the entire Reformation, the thing that drove it was the need to overcome. What do you do about tyranny? The level of tyranny that says you can't teach your children the Lord's Prayer. If we do, we'll burn you at the stake. That's what was going on right after John Wycliffe.
Wow.
There were so many ignorant people that they couldn't just print Bibles. They couldn't just write them. They had to send people out to read them to the people because the people couldn't read. That's the level of ignorance and oppression that there was. And that's why Wycliffe's followers were called the Lollards, because they were like the weeds. That was what the church called them. They were the weeds, the tares among the faithful, because why were they the weeds? Because they were reading the word of God to the people, and instead of allowing the Popish church to interpret it for them. And so that drive to overcome tyranny is why we have why people started saying, wait a minute, what does the Bible say? How do you deal with this? It's where the solas came from my perspective. And it's not to put a secular overlay, but it's to say those are the real life problems that gave birth to saying, well, what does the Word of God say about this? How do you fix this problem? And I believe that training our children to understand that is such a huge part of what we're doing. Amen. And I so appreciate what you brothers do. Thank you so much for.
Thank you, brother.
For what you do.
Thank you for coming on today. We'll talk to you soon. I'm probably see you soon too, right, brother?
Looking forward to it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Zach. All right, everyone. That's Zach Lautenschlager, our good friend. It's always awesome just to sit with Zach and just let him talk. That's one of my favorite things.
As long as he doesn't talk about that one thing, baptism.
It happens from time to time. It's
always, the rest of the time he's good.
It's always about 5 to 10 minutes of really intense, very serious, and then all of a sudden it's just big smiles and high fives and like, okay, let's do something more important now. Speaking of tyranny, is this real? Is this video real?
I think this is real, dude.
Is this real?
I've been hearing
Can
stuff
somebody
like this.
in the thread who's watching right now tell me if this is actually real? I'm going to play it, and I'm not saying it's real. I'm saying if this is real, this is crazy. Here we go.
Today, the call has gone out to everyone in home quarantine in Victoria to take part of our pilot program. And what that means is that they will receive random phone calls and they have to answer within 5 minutes with a selfie sent to this app, which will then geo-track where that person is and to make sure that they are who they say they are as well. If they don't answer within that 5-minute period, that's when health officers come knocking. Pete?
Leave me alone. It's creepy.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's real life. Been hearing stuff like that. It's
That's
not
crazy.
far from China. I mean, that China has
It's
that technology.
Australia.
They're gone.
I mean, Australia.
If you don't like it, just don't live in Australia. Potentially where you've lived for your whole life and your family lived for your whole life.
If you don't like is breaking the law.
Where you
just
own
leave.
your home, where your job is. Just don't live there. That's how it goes.
And I love Australia. We've been to Australia several times.
Hashtag.
So many great believers out there. praying for you guys. We've been getting messages from
Yeah.
our Australian brothers and sisters who are talking about how much they're suffering and how they're working together now to try to speak prophetically against all the stuff happening in Australia. So we're praying for you guys. We love you guys. We miss you. We'd love to be able to come. We'd love really to go anywhere in the world right now. Like, I mean, I think we're like everything's shut
Very
down. Like,
difficult,
I mean, it's like, are we ever going to be able to go to Ireland or the Republic of Ireland or Scotland again with all the crazy stuff that's happening with the mandates and those sorts of things. So, man, some crazy stuff happening. And, man, so fast. That's the thing.
Well, and I do, this is a little unrelated, but I do wonder what people think is going to happen, like, with international travel. When like no one has a job and the government pays all your bills. Like, what do people think? I legitimately want to know what people think is going to happen to that. Like, what do they think is going to happen to restaurants and flying to different places to have different experiences? And
you won't,
because you won't be able to afford those things because
nope.
The government won't.
Because
here's
what we'll do. We'll just send our itemized statements directly to Jeff Bezos, and he'll just pay it, right, in lieu of
That's what
taxes.
Everyone thinks. Exactly. He'll cover it. We'll take all from him because he's so successful. Wow. Yeah.
Even though I just read he like gave some billions of dollars to some climate change initiative, but everyone's still so mad that he has so much money that they want to take it.
It doesn't matter because that's what covetousness does. That's the thing that's so amazing is all these people that make all this money. They can give and give and give and give and give and bless and bless and bless and provide jobs and healthcare and all these different things to the people because of what they've created. And yet it's never enough because that dark heart of every human being who doesn't know Jesus is sold out towards these violations of God's law. We want to be jealous of our neighbor. We want to be envious. We enjoy it. We like to gossip. It feels good to gossip. It feels so good to slander another person. We love to entertain lust and we love to entertain our covetousness. And so it doesn't matter how much somebody gives, it's still not going to solve the problem of the heart that wants what you have. And the only way to solve that is you have to have a new heart. You gotta have God remove your heart of stone, give your heart of flesh. You gotta have God create in you a genuine love for another person so that you learn to, as a believer, suppress those thoughts. Like when as a believer, when you see another person super successful, maybe having something that you don't have, like as a believer, when your mind starts going towards like jealousy, like I don't know why I didn't have that. How come that didn't happen for me? As a believer, like sanctification starts going on where you start realizing like this is a gift from the hand of God. Right. God does what he wills with his own creation. And if God's blessing this person, I need to praise God for his blessings in this person's life. Like you have to learn to sort of like thwart all those sort of fleshly desires of like wanting their stuff or being jealous or like, lying about the person. So the only way the world gets better is through Christ. Amen. God's grace and new hearts and new minds that like resist the temptation to be jealous of a sister or a brother and how God is blessing them. Like I think in a world that is transformed by the gospel, everyone respects one another's property. Everybody loves their neighbor. That's what they're working towards. And everybody celebrates somebody's successes. Yeah. Like, what I think is great, I think is wonderful, is when you go into like a killer restaurant, right? It's like, it's got the best decor and like their waiters and waitresses are all like on it and they're just so professional and kind and they have the best food and everything else. Like that's something you're like, this guy who had this restaurant or this girl who started this restaurant, they are really successful. And maybe they're making, $1 billion a year through this restaurant, franchise or whatever. Like it feels like everyone should sort of be like, good for you.
Right.
Well done.
Good for you. You did a fantastic job.
To understand that there's a cause and effect there.
Yeah.
I think that we're kind of maybe missing a lot of the discipline required to be the things that we want to be.
Right.
We think that we should just be able to watch TikTok and Netflix for 8 hours a day and then...
How come I'm not like Jeff Bezos?
Why can't
where you're
I
wiping the
have
Cheeto
whatever I
dust
want?
off your lips. You're like, why don't I have Jeff Bezos cars?
And yeah, it's just kind of... It's like laziness. It's just like fat, lazy culture. We just like we're given all this abundance by God's law. And then we just like ate our way into not being able to follow any law but our own. Yeah. It was just gluttony over time. I just want what I want. I don't want to have to do the work to do it.
Yep.
because I can just take it
Exactly.
from you.
That's the generation we live in, and
So true.
it seems like doesn't it seem like if people can like sort of hold back and resist the sinful tendencies of humanity that we all have to grapple with, especially outside of Christ, if you could just hold back for a second and like just sort of bird's eye view look at like everything and go, hey, isn't it great to have these really nice restaurants? Isn't it great to be able to just go down the street to this very successful grocery store, and
People love talking about how great socialism is when they're eating steak
and talking on their iPhone. It's like, don't you think it's great that all these people had like, ownership of their own ideas and their own private property?
Oh,
and they made it super successful.
Here's something I heard recently. Private property ownership is a construct of capitalism.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Nobody historically ever thought they owned anything before capitalism.
Yeah.
That was
Thank
you, capitalism.
Yeah, thank you, capitalism.
Yeah, that capitalism created that one.
Yeah. Well, it's the principle of private property. That goes all that. That's what's amazing too. Is like when you have, because there's two opposing worldviews. You have a worldview that says like God is creator, human beings are unique, they should be respected and treasured and protected, and you don't lie about your neighbor, don't commit adultery, don't try to take their stuff, all that. When you have that worldview that says like God is concerned with private property, don't you dare take somebody's things. Like for example, It's as simple as this: you shall not steal. What's the presupposition there? That people own things, and it doesn't belong to you.
Yep.
It's theirs. So you should not steal in the law of God is not just about don't take that thing. It's there's stuff underneath it, that there's assumptions of this is theirs and it doesn't belong to me. Like we've lost all that now. But like that benefit of the biblical worldview and divine transcendent law that says you should not steal, meaning that Joy's stuff is Joy's stuff. My stuff is my stuff, and Luke's stuff is Luke's stuff, and I don't have any right to his stuff. Because why? It's his. It doesn't belong to me.
Right.
We live in a world now where we're like, yeah, but is it really immoral? I mean, who says
it really yours though?
Joy worked really hard for it. She worked really hard, maybe even for years, to produce this thing and to create this product and to have this house. And like, yeah, her family lives there and all that stuff. But you know what? I really like how successful she is. And you know what? I've been sitting here for like 9 hours watching TikTok. And I got nothing going on for me, but she seems like all her kids' bellies are full, and she's got nice cars and nice house, and can I have her stuff? It's like no one respects like the rule of God's law. Like, no, it doesn't belong to you. If you want that, then you work for it and you earn it.
Right.
And you be disciplined and you be self-controlled. That's not to say everyone's situation is the same. And of course, the Christian church, we all believe in loving neighbor and charity. We love taking care of the poor. I mean, who does it better than the Christian church? Not the government. We do it the best. We do it in a way that's free, without coercion and all the rest. And we do it with real love for our neighbors, with a principled position as we go through that. If you have a world that respects private property and your neighbor's things, and everybody's allowed to flourish within their area, it blesses neighbor, it creates wealth, and it also creates wealth that's able to be distributed, ready, without coercion, freely. Because if Joy is super successful in this thing that she develops at home, she creates like a business and it's going out and it's super successful, now she has an excess amount of money, and she says, you know what? I want to give $1 million away to this situation over there. I want to help this guy start his business. And I'm going to give him $1 million just gift. It's not even a loan. Just going to say, you start the business of your dreams. And then guess what? When she's super successful, and her family's successful, all that wealth passes now down on to the next generation of her kids. And then they get to develop things. So when you have a world that respects the simple law of God, you shall not steal, and that's a respect of private property, it establishes wealth in the world. What does the heart seem to be? And I'm going to end it on this. What's the heart of our nation seem to be right now? It's so obvious. Think about it. We've got the President of the United States of America bragging on his covetousness and trying to make you want it. Like, whoa, look what they have. Can you believe they're so successful? Don't you want their stuff? Like, that's coming from the leader of the country, right? So, like, there's that. And then you go, well, is there any spillage from this garbage coming out of this devil's mouth? Yeah, there seems to be spillage. Like, for example, just do a small smattering look at videos of stuff going on in Chicago and other cities across our nation right now, where literally the communities are walking into huge franchises and businesses, and they're walking in, what are they doing? They're literally taking what they want and walking right out the door. And it's happening in droves, and it's happening so much that these employees are like, we can't do anything about it. There's nothing we can do. We're being told don't do anything. And so it creates a culture of people are saying, you guys create and give it to me. And so they're saying, I'm allowed to walk into the store, this franchise, and just take. Why not? Because Target has so much money anyways.
Right.
They're so successful. They don't mind if I take about $10,000 worth of product. Well, there's like 60 people behind you that are doing the same. And that's not sustainable, because guess what? As soon as your community buys into covetousness and theft and starts like rioting and looting and stealing, Target ain't opening up in your neighborhood again. And neither is Walmart or any other store that has their wits about them. They're not putting it into your neighborhood, because what do they say? These people are covetous thieves. I'm not building something in their area. I'm not going to let them steal from me. And so it's like it's this self-destruction of human sin, that propensity towards like, I want what I want, I'm going to go with my lusts, and you don't realize the consequences, which gets right back, circle back, Saki, to the beginning of this show of stupidity doesn't work, foolishness doesn't work, sin is going to have a reward. Righteousness has a reward.
Yep, exactly right.
And sin has a reward. You want the one, not the other.
Right.
Like righteousness,
the one that doesn't look like a curse. That's the one you want.
Exactly. Righteousness in a culture has a reward. We've all experienced that. This nation is testimony to that, right? Not all of us can even feel what they had 200 years ago, but we still have some of it hanging on a thread. But sin also has a reward, and that reward is coming, America. I'm not a prophet. I'm not the son of a prophet. People love to say that, but it's true. Sin will not work. Stupidity won't work. And this stuff is going to come crashing down.
Yep.
It will.
Yep.
It'll come crashing down. And the only thing that stands in the way, God's means of stopping this avalanche of sin and destruction and consequence, the only thing standing in the way is the Church of Jesus Christ. It's his people. It's us. It's us speaking prophetically against it. It's us giving God's gospel and God's law to the culture around about us. It's us being salt and light, and stop letting that just be a pithy slogan, because you're all experiencing this right now. I don't know how many men that I've heard from, even in my own church, that have lost their jobs now because of this cookie mandate. I'm going to say cookie because if I say anything else, it's going to get suppressed. And people who are losing businesses because of all this now. And I know it's probably affecting you who are in the hearing of my voice right now. We've got people in the military who are happening right now across branches, FBI, DEA, Navy SEALs, all that, ATF, even the ATF, who are suffering under this, and they're believers and they're trying to resist this. You have to speak against this, because it's going to destroy you and your kids, your families. It's gonna hurt. Like, people say, oh, just, preach the gospel. I am, because I'm calling out sin, and I'm saying the only solution is Jesus Christ and faith in him. Turn from your sin and your wicked ways and your covetousness and your lying and your stealing and all the rest. And I'm saying that to the very top. You can also say the gospel to the government. And that's what Christians have forgotten, is that the gospel is also for those in government.
Amen.
And we've stopped telling it to them. And guess what happens? When you sort of slide the church out of the way, get the church out of the way of the avalanche, all of it just over everything, wipes everything out. And that's what we're feeling right now. So I'm wondering, who are the men and women that God is going to raise up to finally start fighting and say something, right? I mean, we're not heroes, but we're doing our best. We're doing our best. Where are the other heroes and the fighters who would just simply say, I don't care about respectability. I don't care about people liking me. I don't care about people liking my message. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to tell the truth because God commands me to. So, any last words?
No. Please don't let us become Australia. That's my plea.
Sorry, Australians. We love you, but we don't want what you got right now.
Or Canada, for that matter.
Oh, my goodness gracious. I mean, we could do another show just talking about all the stuff in the last week, like ministers being told, or you need to make sure that people come in with a vaccine card to worship, and
pastors being essential workers, so they have to have vaccines.
Essential workers, you got to be vaccinated as well. It's wild. So we'll leave it there for this week, everybody. ApologiaStudios.com. Go there, sign up for all access. You make everything we do possible. Thank you guys so much for your love and support. Go to endabortionnow.com. Get your church signed up for the work that we're doing, saving lives at the abortion mill, and all these bills that have happened. Glory to God, this last year, these bills of abolition, these bills of equal protection, they're happening. That's the one great thing about 2021 is like all this stuff is just terrible. But 2021 is the year where we just got bill after bill after bill going into state legislatures, equal protection, criminalization, abolition. Praise the Lord for that. It's an amazing gift. So,
which means we do live in a country where you can still make changes, and you can still say no. I'm not going to do that.
That's right. That's Joy the girl.
It is. See ya.
That's Luke the Bear.
Peace out.
I'm Jeff the Common Ninja. We'll catch you next week right here on Apologia Studios.